What's going on, everyone? So, according to CBS Sports, a name to kind of keep an eye on for a potential buyout candidate is Kevin Huerter. And the report kind of gives the logic of like, hey, Chicago has a bunch of guards they're going to need to find minutes for. They're still looking to pay Josh Giddey, which also they could potentially look to kind of free up some cap space to help with the Josh Giddey signing and acquisition. Kevin Huerter is on his last year of his deal, making just literally like a hair under $18 million. So if they can, get off, if they can't get off of guys like Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White has been names that have been linked in potential trades. Talks about a Nikola Vucevic potentially being bought out, though there have been a recent report that's a little overblown. But we've gotten, when you're talking about the offseason, it's the which reporter do you trust more? Right? Like, you'll get 3 or 4 reports that say one thing, and then you'll get that random report that goes against the grain. I usually kind of try to look at, like, what's the consensus, right? Usually when there's 5 or 6 different people reporting the same thing, usually that's the consensus. But, nothing is guaranteed until it actually happens, right? Everything is rumor and speculation until it actually happens and gets done. However, Kevin Huerter, if he was to be bought out, I wouldn't hate using him for the last roster spot. The San Antonio Spurs, what's the biggest thing that this team needs when you look at it? Shooting, right? Now, obviously, the Spurs have a ton of just guards themselves and wings and a bunch of 6'8" guys that can play either forward spot. But Kevin Huerter, guy 6'7", starting at the 2, starting at the 3, kind of like a more at the 2, just because I think his size, he's not an atrocious defender, but he's not a great defender. You look at like his defense stats, like they're nearly identical every year. Basically a 116.5 defensive rating type of guy, which again isn't good, but it's not like terrible, right? He's kind of like middle of the pack. But he's there to be that assignment, like high volume, catch and shoot 3-point shooter, a guy that can play on ball, off ball, catch and shoot 3 type thing. And a guy that's still pretty young, right? He's 26. He won't be 27 till towards the end of August. So basically going into next season, he'll be 27 years old. So a guy that could still be a quality piece. I don't think he's going to get 18 plus million on his next contract, probably half of that. So he could even be a guy that you look to maybe kind of keep around. Especially if the Spurs do at some point make a trade or consolidation trade or something and try to get off of like a Devin Vassell or a Keldon Johnson or something along those lines. There's a lot of questions of like kind of where do they fit in? How are they going to kind of go about this rotation? Imagine Devin Vassell probably slots in at the 2 or the 3, because I guess you could go Stephon Castle at either the 2 or the 3, but I kind of like Castle as that kind of point of attack, guard pressure for the Spurs. But whatever they decide to do, I wouldn't hate Kevin Huerter coming in, being a guy that you could bring in, slot in, and kind of play that kind of off-ball catch-and-shoot 3-point shooter. You think of guys like De'Aaron Fox and how well Kevin Huerter kind of play off of it. They have familiarity together playing in Sacramento. So, like, you have this guy that can be that movement shooter that on any given night can go get you 15 to 20 randomly. Last year he averaged 10 points. So, he's a guy that at glance kind of solve the need, especially if you're getting him for free, right? You're not having to trade for him. You're not having to pony up and give up anything, right? He's a guy that you're just, if he does, again, this is assuming that he actually does get bought out, but if he does end up getting bought out, right, then that's somebody that you could bring in on a vet minimum contract that gives you quality shooting at volume, at scale. And he's one of those guys that's like, nearly deadlock every year. Like, you get guys that are, like career 37% 3-point shooters. And it's like, they're like 30%, 40%, 30, 40%, right? Like, and it just kind of all averages out. No, he's pretty steadily just a, 37.5% 3-point shooter year in and year out, 37, 38%. Get that. He's also a guy that plays, right? So the best ability is availability. So to bring in a guy that can play regularly, I think could add some value. But you just kind of look at him, and going over his stats, jumping into it, like I mentioned, he is a career 37.5% 3-point shooter with Chicago. On 7.2 attempts, he shot 37.6%. However, he shot with Sacramento on 4.8 attempts, so nearly almost half the volume. 30.2%. He was overall 34% on the season. That's because of how poorly he shot in Sacramento. But you look year in and year out, 38.5%, 38%, 36%, 39%, 40%, 36%, and then last year was the 34%. So he's a guy that, again, is pretty steadily around that 37 to 38% three-point shooting. And volume-wise, 5.7 attempts for his career. But Sacramento, he averaged, like I said, 4.8, but 7.2, 5.7, 5.3, 6.8. So a guy that gets it with volume, right? That's what I was talking about. Having a guy that in volume can knock down threes at a consistent rate, at a good, efficient kind of clip. But going over stats, 69 games played last year. And like I said, he's a guy that plays 69 games last year, 64, which, you kind of want at least the 65 threshold, but 75, 74, 69, 56, and then 75, right? So, and that 56 was his second year in the league. So he's a guy that basically clocking in at, 70 plus games a season, which is really good, right? That's what you want. But 69 games played, 24.3 minutes per game, 8.8 attempts on. This is between both teams. It's on average of 42.5%, right? Again, he shot better in Chicago everywhere, right, across the board. Field goal percentages, he also got more attempts, but Sacramento was 7.2 attempts on 41.3%. Chicago was 11.3 attempts on 44%. But 2-point range or 3-point range, like I mentioned, 33.8% overall, 30.2%, 37.6% with Chicago. 2-point range was 58.7% in total on the season on 3.1 attempts. It's because he shot 63% from 2-point range with Sacramento on 2.4 attempts. But he took nearly double the attempts with Chicago at 4.2 and still shot 55%. So still good volume in that regard. EFG overall in the season, 53.5%, 71.4% across the board, right? So with Sacramento and Chicago. So steady in that regard in both places. Rebounding. Averaged 3 rebounds, 2.8 with Sacramento, 3.3 with Chicago. Assist, he went from, on the season he was 2.3, but he went from 1.7 to 3.2, nearly double, just shy of double with Chicago. Average also steals, 1.5 steals and half a block, where in Sacramento he averaged just under 1 steal at 0.8 and half a block. He averaged 10 points total on the season, 8 points with Sacramento, and 13.2 with Chicago. So, I mean, if you get that version of him, that could go a long way for a team like the San Antonio Spurs. So, again, just kind of look at, he's a guy that could potentially make some sense to kind of fill in that void of shooting the basketball. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.